And that giant cacophony tells you you're back with the Power of Three podcast as we continue our countdown towards the release of Season 13 on Blu-ray. And of course, Season 13 contains one of the greatest of all time's Doctor Who stories. We're talking Pyramids of Mars. I'm Kenny Smith, and we are going to be talking Pyramids of Mars, but in plastic form with the man who made them happen. You better say hello, man who made them happen.
Yes, hello. Hello from, I've been brought Sutek's gift of a slight cold and a sore throat.
And you haven't said who you are? Sutek's gift of
everyone knows
such
who
virus.
Do they? No, they probably don't. It's Al Dewar here. Sorry, I said that in a bit of a weird way. It's Al Dewar. So, yes, here I am. Slightly ill, but not fully manifested into illness.
Absolutely. You bring Sutek's gift of a slightly croaky voice.
That's it. I bring Sutek's gift of, yes, infection.
But hopefully it's not going to be like a computer virus and we'll all catch something, so I'm sure we'll be fine.
Yeah.
Listeners, if you're not well, please send an email to their2podcast@gmail.com and let Peter know that you're not well, and he'll try and sort out a doctor's appointment for you.
Exactly.
So there we go.
And the listeners will just have to put up with a few hacking coughs every now and again.
Well, hopefully in the edit we'll have taken them out so you'll sound absolutely fine and as sexy as ever, Al. You sexy, sexy man.
Yes.
So, shall we kick off and discuss the various figures that have come from Pyramids of Mars? Of course, the first one we got was the Mummy as part of Wave 2 of the Classics, which we've previously discussed. And I still think it's a fantastic figure, down to the detail of even things like the little red pyramid in the back.
It is. Do you know, every time I see that figure, I feel I kind of wish in my heart of hearts we'd done a bit more with it. It is. It's up there in my top favourite stories. That's why it appeared in that first. It was the first wave, wasn't it? Or was it the second wave?
It was the second wave of Classics, yeah.
But they were all from my favourites, so it's legitimate. They're just such a cool monster. Again, it's your formative sort of time. With Doctor Who, everyone sort of has one. With me, it was definitely Tom Baker's era, definitely his early stories left there. I loved that Mummy story. I loved they were just unstoppable. They were the Terminator before the Terminator came along. I mean, I remember you've got the groundskeeper kind of goes running off into the woods and you kind of think, oh, well, he's safe. And then literally, sort of like 10 minutes later, this Mummy just turns up and it just kind of turns and starts walking forward. They're just sort of monotonous and a bit unstoppable. And you don't know whether they're creatures or robots at that point because they haven't had the bandages taken off, although the psionic ring and all the clues are there that they are robots, I suppose. But yeah, and then when they crush him to death, that's almost a sort of worse than strangulation in a way, because the sort of angled top of their chest pieces literally kind of meet just at his neck point, and I just had, because it cuts away, I just had this horrendous, I don't know why, but as a kid I had this horrendous feeling that he was going to get decapitated or something. So I still to this day find that quite an uncomfortable scene.
Interesting. So part of me would be quite happy to go that way if I was being squashed to death between the chests of two mummies, but there we go. Anyway, I think it's a great figure, and the fact you've got those lovely little accessories with it, with the canopic jars, I think they're really nice wee touches.
I love those, and we started I think with one or two, and then we had another two when we brought in the Priory set sort of later on. So, but yeah, the Mummy was great. The reason I feel we could have done more is the articulation. I mean, they were quite limited in what they did. The articulation was also quite limited. I feel with today's modern components. We could have probably done something a little bit different, but I can't 100% be sure. But yeah, no, the Mummy was great, and then obviously later on we used them again in the, although you're probably going to go on to that, but the gold sash ones. So yep,
we shall come to those shortly. Then the next one was the fourth Doctor figure. The fact that you even gave him that control panel from the console as well, which is a lovely little touch.
So that was an exclusive that was done for Forbidden Planet. Forbidden Planet was always interesting because, like the Who shop, they constantly asked for exclusives, but kind of when it comes to stumping up the, it sounds a bit disingenuous, and it's not meant to be. It's just a fact, because they are one retail outlet, or one retailer with a few outlets, I should say, because they have North America and stuff now, but. They asked for an exclusive, and at the time we gave them that one as an exclusive. But I think they still had it. They still had it years later, because they obviously the MOQs on figures was I think about 5,000 pieces. So they for years you could go into Forbidden Planet and sell or buy rather the Fourth Doctor. But yeah. Myself and Andy Teal were chatting about this the other day. It's both one of our favourite stories, and it's both probably our favourite figure, the long brown coat. As much as my love of Robot pulls me to that first Tom Baker season, the long brown jacket from Pyramids, Tom Baker standing in the TARDIS doing his speech about being a Time Lord and being a bit above all this rubbish. And then whizzing Sarah forward to the 1980s to see what Sutek was going to do. Yeah, it was brilliant. And I that accessory was so iconic to the resolution of that story, that piece. And it was a piece of the TARDIS. I mean, I don't think we ever saw where it fitted into the console, but technically TARDIS. So it was like, yeah, we'll have the God, what was it called? It was the...
not the time control unit.
It was basically the time control unit, but I'm trying to think of the actual name for it. Temporal... I used to know this. Temporal...
So did I. We're getting old now. We can't remember things.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it was great. And it kind of had that... You kind of knew it was TARDIS-y because of the way it was kind of put together. So it was, it was pretty cool. So yeah, all in all, fab figure. Loved that one.
Yeah, we got the Priory set as well. That was one that came soon after with the wonderful figure of Marcus Scarman. Sorry, yeah, Marcus, not Lawrence. And we got the sarcophagus in there, Sutek himself, and some more canopic jars. But that's before we even get to the Siren warhead.
I know. It all goes insane. So this was the next iteration, and we had the mummies. Scarman is just a brilliant sculpt. Again, I don't know if Andy Teal sculpted that head, though my suspicions would be that he did. I need to ask him. But is it Lawrence? It's Lawrence Scarman, isn't it?
That's Marcus is the evil one. Lawrence was Mr. Bronson.
Marcus Scarman, it is. You put doubt in my head there for a second, Penny. Yeah, and it was a rework of an existing figure with a few little tweaks, but it ended up proportionately being absolutely spot on. It was really good. And the mummies was essentially a repaint. But again, the diorama in that box was, again, it's just the iconography. I remember once they get to the Pyramid of Mars and the walls had that very distinctive look, and you had that thing of like the doors opening, ching, 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 and then you could see the TARDIS at the end down at the bottom of the corridor, and it was just, so again, that was just me indulging myself completely in Pyramids of Mars. The only thing I wish we'd been able to include, and I remember looking at it at the time and not being able to afford it and just basically saying, oh, well, I'll have to call it quits, was I really wanted the Eye of Horus, the little red gem that basically was the control unit. I really wanted to include that, but we couldn't afford it, so it got kiboshed, which was very unkind in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I always think that the likeness that you got for Bernard Arshard is fantastic for that one, and still think If you ever need to do Bragan from Power of the Daleks, there he is. This skin doesn't need to be quite so pale.
No, and Sutek in that version that's the one with the jackal head, isn't it?
No, it's the one. That's the one with the mask. Is the one that's in there with the light up, brilliant eyes. I remember being so surprised when you sent that through. And it's like, wow.
My memory is that one was definitely done first, and having the light up Sutek eyes was. Yeah, I really wanted that. That was why we couldn't afford the other stuff, was because I basically put all the money in the mask. And I remember having the argument because they were like, there's not enough room for a battery compartment. And I was like, God, the mask is massive. Of course there's room for a battery compartment. And then there was a battery compartment and it looked really ugly. And I remember going, oh, that looks rubbish. Can't we kind of disguise it? Can't we have a panel, so basically the back of the mask pops off and then you see the battery compartment so that it's not this so the Sutek doesn't turn round and it says made in China. So there was various, so that's why that became quite a sort of intricate, slightly tricky thing to get off. I remember years later somebody saying the batteries have run down. I have no idea how to get into this bloody thing, and I was like, well, I don't know either. I'm going to have to go and have a look. So I remember having to sort of haul one out of storage and have a look at how it popped off. But the tricky bit was that by that stage a good few years had passed, and the plastic ages quite differently depending on the type of material it is. So I remember I seem to remember sort of saying, look, you can do this, but you're going to have to be a bit careful with it, because there is the chance you're going to pry open his whole head and then you're in a world of trouble. So yes, so it was Sutek with the and that effect when the eyes lit up is still one of my favorite things on a toy ever. There's sort of no light leakage. It's just that moment where it's and Tom Baker goes, ah!
I wonder how many people have recreated that moment with your work.
Probably many. I would like to think that everybody should get a chance to do the Sutek death stare scene. It's compulsory.
Or it should be. If it isn't, it should be. I know that Katie used to love playing with that, and she'd have the two Suteks, and the body sculpt of Sutek is fantastic as well, just with those red gloves as well. The black and red just absolutely, to use the phrase, pops. It looks amazing just looking at it in that form.
The joy of that whole story is that everything looks so Egyptian. You know, the sarcophagus looks amazing. When we did that, I remember fighting to get the lenticular. I've got two engineers. One still works on Doctor Who, and she's the mainstay. But the original engineer, I think he used to despair of me because I would be like, "Oh, I want to do this," and he'd be like, "Really?" And I'd be like, "Yeah." But Peter was brilliant, and he always managed to pull it out the bag. But we had, the sarcophagus, the details in that were just insane as well. So.
Yeah, it's the lenticular interior is just such a great touch. It just sort of gives you that time tunnel effect, and yeah, it's done with care and love.
Yeah, I had to sit and redraw all those little, because I was looking at it and thinking, Christ, how do I make this work? And then I realised they were all just elongated lozenges, so elongated teardrops, but obviously they have to run in a particular pattern, and you only get literally 3 frames with lenticular. You get you can get more. You can get more, but at the time it was standard, and you get those 3 frames, so it has to kind of animate well across 3 frames, basically. But we sort of did it in the end, but it was very cool.
Marvellous, it really is, and the detail on it is just second to none. When did the idea of doing the warhead come up and doing it in cardboard? Because it was just such a surprise, like, why has this not been done before? It's a proper playset, it's brilliant. It reminded me of like the original Star Wars Death Star release.
It was me, but I remember just sketching in a book and thinking, oh, we should include the war rocket. And it started with the war rocket, and I bent a piece of card into the shape and I sat it there, and then I literally just went, do you know, the whole box could be the packaging, because it then occurred to me that the bottom of the box could basically be inverted. So you take the lid off, and then you kind of invert a few bits of cardboard and assemble the cardboard bits, and hey presto, you've got a. And I sat there and drew all. I mean, I did all the graphics on those. I did all the graphics for all the everything on the box there. So it was a lot of there was a lot of love poured into that, and we made some shit up. I mean, obviously, you only ever saw the Siren rocket from kind of low level, and it just looked like a black kind of base and a tent and an IKEA tent on the top of it. But I kind of added a few little details and bits and pieces. And again, back to that thing of just adding stuff that the engineers kind of go, what? And I remember I said, oh, the tent door's got to fold back and stay, because that's how it is in the program. And they were like, well, how do you want to do that? And I was like, let's put Velcro. And they were like, oh, Jesus, like, what are you thinking? But yeah, so there was a lot of work, time and effort.
Yeah, it's lovely. And then finally, let's look at the set with the gold mummies. And you mentioned earlier the packaging for that with the door and the jackal-headed Sutek, which looks amazing.
What was the packaging for the Priory set?
It looked like a picture. It's got Scarman holding a tray set against a library sort of background, a wooden sort of background, and then there's sarcophagus there. So it's sort of like, looks like a library, and then there's a close-up of Sutek's eyes down in the corner, all lit up.
Is there an acknowledgement on the pack for that one? I have a feeling it was maybe. I think somebody helped me out. I think somebody who had already done a library interior, and we used that for photography, or it might have been Jim Sangster. But yeah, I remember that one being quite different. God, we spun that story out, didn't we? We got 4 sets out of that bloody thing.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I do think the jackal-headed Sutek, that sort of thing, would that have been sort of based on off-screen photos and the ones that I think there's a few publicity stills as well, and behind the scenes?
My go-to place is always still Doctor Who's Tragical History Tour, and it's funny. Back in the old days, you used to be able to get so whatever resolution the photograph was taken, you used to be able to get the actual photograph at that resolution. So you used to get some quite good photos, and then sadly and unfortunately they changed a lot of that, and that is a sort of set resolution and a set frame size that you get the preview in. So you don't get quite the same resolution. But in the old days, you used to be able to pull some very good reference off there, and the jackal head certainly was one of them, which I think in reality you only ever see it as kind of like it was probably a dummy or it was superimposed. But I remember with the jackal head, I can't remember if it ended up the hours had to be slightly smaller or slightly bigger, because it just didn't look quite right. But that was another one where there was a bit of faffing around, as we like to say, to get the look. I think it was the side profile that was the problem, because you only ever see it from the front, and when you see it from the side, it looks really weird. But obviously, like most props, when it's on camera, face to the front, nobody cares. It's job done.
Yeah, it looks good. I wonder how many people have popped off the head of Marcus Scarman and popped on the jackal head just to have that moment recreated. As you say, a moment in time. I'm sure somebody will have somewhere.
Probably a few. If you were doing it now and you had the kind of budget of things like the Black Series and stuff, I'd have so much other stuff. I'd have like a puff of brown smoke that you could plug in the front of him so that you can gun scene where he gets shot and the smoke kind of billows out.
Yeah,
I've always said that smoke effect was quite horrific. It was a sort of product of the 70s, and it was used quite a lot in Pertwee's time, but that sort of really dense brown smoke that they had that kind of came flying out.
Yeah.
Again, that used to horrify me as a kid when that happened. And that sequence of Marcus Scarman being sort of shot and then this thing billowing out of him and then kind of going back in, that was really creepy. I was like, whoa, that was... And he, apparently when they filmed it, he had to kind of walk backwards from the window.
Yep.
And you can see it, there's a slightly stilted, because obviously walking backwards isn't natural, but it's remarkable how well that works.
Definitely is. Then finally, we've got the Servitors of Horus with their gold bandages. Now, would that have involved extra sort of going back to the original molds and creating new ones to have like these extra bandages for the wipe on them? Or would it have been an amendment of what you had?
My memory is that they were retooled. Certainly, I think the bodies, I mean, without having them in front of me to cross-reference, my memory is that maybe the upper bodies were done. But there was quite a lot of changes, isn't there? Don't they have? They've got gold wristbands.
Yep, and they've got a bit over the face as well.
They've got the face. That was definitely.
The legs are the same.
The legs are the same, and yeah. So we would have gone back and sort of redone those, which is, when you think about it, that's quite a change for a set. We wouldn't do that nowadays. I can guarantee you, we would not do that.
Yeah. Any regrets that there was never a Sarah Jane figure to go with it? Because I was having a look at the Gelth old lady and just thought, would it have worked? And just thought it's not quite the right shape of dress.
Yeah, my friend Shane Cook in Oz, he does a lot of customs, and they're all very good. And he's utilised the Gelth old lady for a lot of stuff. The reason I think I shied away from it, it's a bit like the Master. I kind of felt that dress was the exception to the rule. It wasn't, it was Victoria's dress, and it wasn't the atypical Sarah Jane. So I think, I know what I'm like. I would have said that that's not the atypical Sarah Jane, and if we do a Sarah Jane, I'd like it to be more what we know as Sarah Jane, which is why, years later we ended up doing the Ark in Space one, which I think that slightly more go-get-em tomboyish look for Sarah, I think, was best. Although I'd still love to do the Andy Pandy outfit from Hand of Fear. I think that's a great outfit for her.
It would definitely work. But all in all, Al, you've created some real gems from a fantastic story, and just having a look at them all together, just like, I feel quite tempted to put Pyramids on later and then have my action figures on the table and watch along with them.
I think with the War Rocket set, there's so much extra in that. There's all the components of the rocket that you sort of see on screen. Well, not all of them, but there's the rest of the canopic jars. There's the coordinate relay unit even inside the canopic jars, there's a little, what was clearly bits of a thermos flask.
Yes.
Circa 1970. Nowadays, I would love to put more accessories. I'd love to put a couple of sticks of dynamite and, another few bits and pieces. But yeah, it was that set in particular, I think, was, because of the packaging, was probably more impressive than anything else. And we haven't really done anything like it since, I'll be honest. Partly because in modern packaging, we've done it with TARDISes, that we put things like the TARDIS insert in the back, in the packaging insert, and it's a soft material and it's a bit crappy, and I don't think it works particularly well, so I would probably shy away from it. And interestingly, I do remember having quite a few fights about the grade of packaging, the grade of cardboard, the microflute that we were using at the time, because it had to be denser, like proper good dense microflute. But yes, we've it's funny, I never think of that set or that story as being one where we sort of mined it for all it was worth. But I when you look at it in its entirety, we pretty much didn't we? We've got a lot in there. I would have loved to have done a Lawrence Scarman, and I would have loved to have done the little machine that they use in the lodge.
The Marconiscope.
The Marconiscope. I'd have loved, because again, that's just the iconic scene where that just starts whirring, and then the valve blows and it's still running, and then the Doctor does his, the forces coming into being in that house, and that's the thing I love about Tom Baker, that absolute, when the Fourth Doctor said the world is facing its greatest peril as a 10-year-old, actually as probably a 7-year-old, I remember that, and I remember the Fourth Doctor says, things are going to shit. Things are going to shit. You know, it was like proper. So, yeah.
Yeah, you believe him very much so.
Very much believe him. There's quite a lot of death in it. I'm slightly drawn to the stories where there's a relatively high death count, or there's slightly deathy. You know, the image of Bendal falls into that same category, as does Planet of Evil. You know, there's people get shot, strangled, mutilated, smoked like a kipper to death. You know, the body count's fairly high, which I quite appeals to me, I think. So it's probably another reason why that story is indelibly kind of seared into my consciousness.
Yeah. You should have been a goth.
I should be goth, I suppose. Yeah.
Al, it's been brilliant as always.
Yeah, cool. Thank you for having me on. Sorry it was a bit short and sweet, and apologies for the cold and the coughing and the...
Not at all. It's always good to have you, and I thought it just makes a nice little bonus as we count down for season 13 arriving on our shelves, or indeed our boxes, or through our letterboxes, wherever they may be coming from, on Monday.
Yes, well, yeah, it is. It's very imminent, isn't it? And again, that season is, as you rightly say, iconic. I think a lot of people our age remember seeing that. So yeah, it'll be interesting to rewatch some of those. Definitely will be. But I might have to go and watch Pyramids myself now. Yeah, but make sure you get the action figures out, and we'll send pictures as we have them all set up. So Al, as you know, the end is near, and we like to play with a tune. Now, you did mention earlier the word teardrop, which automatically got me thinking about the teardrop explodes and their hit reward, but it's over to you. What would you like us to play out with? Oh, no, I'll go with that. There we go. Something that just sort of ties in with the fluid conversation that we've had. Yeah. So fantastic. Yeah. Al, will you come back soon to talk about something else that's new that we're not talking about yet? I'll come back. No worries. Any, as you know. Brilliant. Al, thanks very much, and hope everybody enjoyed listening as well. Thanking you. Cheers. Cheers.